sure. Look, we're used. Hello, everyone. How you doing? You're very welcome to back to this week's last word on Formula One with myself, Aidan Rafferty, and Nocky Lyder, otherwise known as Michael O'Grady. Hello, Michael. How are you? Are you well?
I am not too bad. If you want to wonder where I got the Nocky Lyder from, it's actually Frank Spencer.
All right. Some others do have him.
Yeah.
I didn't know he was a Formula One driver, but there you go.
Well, he said he went round the corner like Nocky Lyder, so we know who that is.
Yeah, but does he? Yeah. So there's plenty to be talking about. I suppose looking ahead to the Qatar Grand Prix, but there's a lot of things we have to discuss leading up to the race. So
yeah, well,
over to you.
Looking ahead to the circuit of the Americas, and look, I'm back to Qatar, and was it a pain in the because it had sprint shootout again?
There you go.
This is always great. Do you know, we always say half an hour is good, but we could use an extra 5 minutes. Now, with sprint shootout, half an hour is good, but we could use the second half hour. It's just the way it goes. It really is.
There you go.
But for those of you who are watching the second ever Qatar Grand Prix, yeah, only the second ever now, in fairness, there was a few things that kind of hit a blip on the start of it. First of all, there was an extra 10 minutes of practice time added. Why was it added? Well, because there was problems with the new Pirelli tyres and someone called it pyramids, but I think he thinks he's in the wrong country.
I thought you were going to say that the reason for the delay was roadworks, but that obviously wasn't.
Oh, no, that's the Irish grass.
That's Ireland, yes.
No, it's they're being too sharp. Basically, the runoff chicane is being too sharp, so they had to actually lessen them exceptionally quickly, so they could get on with their practice sessions. So they allowed an extra 10 minutes for practice, which I'm not sure that really helped, to be quite honest with you, because one thing you notice about this track is it's in the desert. Doesn't sound too bad, bar there's two major problems: dust and heat. The heat became a problem, and the dust is a problem because the cars are very slippy the second they come off the racing line, which caused a lot of problems on the day. A lot of track limits are problematic, and that's the way it was. The other thing about it is Max Verstappen only needed 3 points to actually win the Grand Prix or the World Championship. So 3 points, he could come 7th, and the man is world champion. Now, qualifying on the track, as I said, was very dusty. Okay, you had qualifying first, and then you had sprint, and then you had the race. I think we'll start with sprint, because otherwise it gets very cross-eyed when you come to these things, as I say. And in sprint qualifying, the big noticeable thing was Lance Stroll. Oh, he had an absolutely dreadful time. He was going around corners like it was an oil tanker rather than it was a car. It was very, very, very difficult to watch, I have to admit, and not a very happy camper at the end of it, because Lance is not doing very well compared to his elderly teammate Fernando Alonso. There's a massive difference. That's not going to look well for him at the minute. You should know to use very colourful language, and it has to be said, it was almost Irish colourful languages for being times being deleted for track limits, kind of going off the track limits, which is going to happen. You can't stay on the track. You're going to put the 4 tyres off in qualifying. You're going to lose the time. And he wasn't the only one, because Lewis Hamilton got knocked out in Q2. There's something you don't hear that often now for a Mercedes, I have to admit. He got knocked out again, exactly the same thing, going off the track limits, track time or lap time deleted. Not a happy buddy, I can tell you. Well, Max Verstappen also got his first lap deleted. So, Lewis and Lance can't feel so bad about it. And Piastri actually got pole position with Norris in second. And that was kind of interesting, because you don't see that too often these days, do you? Max Verstappen not in first place. What's going on there? After that, you really had Russell qualifying in 4th, which was very, very good. And then kind of Leclerc and Hulkenberg. Hulkenberg actually did a very good lap for 7th place, I have to admit. Perez in an unusual 8, and then Alonso and Ocon. Perez not having a good time with either. On the sprint shootout itself, as they say, only brief on this one because personally, I don't know. I think it's just too much over a weekend. But anyhow, the thing about sprint shootout is you can only use one set of tires. And there is a problem with the tires, which I'm going to come back to for that entire weekend. Some people went soft tires, some people went hard tires. What was the best? Well, on the soft tires, dream launch, I have to admit, for first place Piastri. Norris and Verstappen got swamped because they're on the medium tires, and Russell and both Ferraris, absolutely soft tires, went flying past them like they were absolutely stopped. That was it. Max Verstappen way back. It didn't last because, of course, we had a safety car out nearly immediately as an AlphaTauri decided, nope, I don't want to be on the track anymore. Off she went. Lap 3 back on again. George Russell on the soft tires took first place. Amazing overtake by him, I have to admit. Absolutely brilliant. And Fernando Alonso all over the back of the two McLarens. It was great to see. But Logan Sargent decided his car didn't want to stay on the track. And we had another safety car back out in lap 6.
Safety car overload.
Absolutely, there's only 19 laps in sprint shootout. Like, we're back on lap 6, a green car racing, but now it was a bit of a change. The medium tires started basically picking themselves back up again, and the guys on the medium tires, like Max Verstappen, was suddenly flying as the soft tires were kind of, we're getting a bit tired here. So it kind of switched around very quickly. And, you saw the Ferraris on lap 10 and lap 11 getting mugged very quickly. And it wasn't just followed by that. Russell got mugged fairly quickly by George Russell again as the tires went off. And Perez and Ocon both went off the track. The two of them, and Hulkenberg trying to see if cars can go 3 wide at the same time. I think they figured out it doesn't. But guess what? Another safety car.
No.
It was absolute chaos, I have to admit. It was really, it was kind of lap 15 before they were off racing again. And, the softs, I have to admit, got into temperature very, very fast. And for about a lap and a half, it looked brilliant. But, of course, then the mediums came back again. And at the end, the second youngest driver on the track, Oscar Piastri, was second for sprint shootout. You just can't. You have to hand it to the guy.
You couldn't make it up.
Yeah, he's done a great job. Now, Norris had a rough time of it. We're not saying he didn't. He was quick and he had a rough time of it. But Max was second. Behind him then was Norris, Russell, Hamilton, and both Ferraris. Russell outperforming his 7-time, perhaps 6-time if you listen to Bernie Ecclestone, world champion counterpart, which there is a little bit more information on that shortly.
Stay tuned.
Sorry, people, I'm doing Vampire at the minute. Aidan will know what that's all about.
Well, it is coming up to Halloween now, in fairness.
That's very true. We move on to proper qualifying, and I'll apologise to everybody for moving very quickly, but just so much was going on all weekend. Lance Stroll was out in Q1. Not a little happy bunny again. He was rather abrupt with the interviewers, and it was a bit of a minor meltdown. In fairness, he's massively overshadowed by the elderly second driver that they have, that everyone said, wouldn't be that quick. And of course, Alonso, I mean, he's staggeringly far ahead of him, and Lance is, to be honest, fighting to keep his place too, because he's looking dodgy at the minute with his performance. It's just not great, actually. Q2 was a bit mad as well. Carlos Sainz, he's out, big shock. And Sergio Perez got his time deleted in Q2, and he was out as well. It's kind of absolutely crazy. Now, Carlos Sainz's woes didn't finish there because, of course, he didn't start the race at all because basically the curbs were so detrimental to the car on the day in the 1 or 2 places where he missed the track limits, which everybody was because of the dust on the track. They were all hidden out of the track limits, but like rules are rules. There's nothing you can do about it. They can't make allowances for it.
The joys of Grand Prix in Kentucky.
I'm absolutely telling you, and you're going to get nailed anytime you move, and go off. But I mean, basically, it actually, the interaction between the nasty curves and his petrol tank weren't good. And he could not start the race, which was a sad situation because he's a very good driver. But look, it is what it is. And so many people suffered on the day. Yeah, you can't really, you can't really go off with that one. You can't really complain. It is what it is. You were just unlucky. It is what it is. Everyone had to face the same obstacles and didn't come off with,
And some handled them better than others, in fairness, I suppose.
Absolutely. Some did handle it better than others. Max Verstappen even got a time deleted, but he got back out. He got off the horse, got back on the horse, went around and put in a fast time, So a lot of people
with the track in mind as well, and with the conditions as well. What role did tire selection play in it, or did it play? Was it significant compared to, we say, other tracks?
It was totally significant because now you've hit the old nail on the head there straight away, as you do quite in a long time. There was a massive problem with tires because, well, we had the chicane incident and we have the dust, which 1, 2, not helping. Number 3, yeah, unfortunately, Pirelli were having a very hard time with the track. And 4 hours before the race, you talk about very short period of time, they announced that any car cannot go further than 18 laps on the tires. That is it. You have to pull in. So now we know when sort of, I suppose, when everyone's going to be pitting if they're going on a long run, which is 18 laps, which isn't very long. Now, that was a bit of a shocker because, 4 hours before the race, a lot of the teams had their strategy already planned, which they would have from the previous week, and then they would have changed as they went along, and then the track limits would have changed it, and then they would have ran on tires that they're going to run on for the race, only to find out that that plan is thrown out as well, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it at this stage because, after qualifying, you can't change the situation unless it rains. And now 4 hours before the race, they're saying, right, lads, you can only run 18 laps. So tires were massively significant. It was, to be honest with you, a bit of it. I'm not saying the race wasn't good, but there was a lot of problems. There was a lot of hassle. The tires didn't work. The chicanes didn't work. The dust was a problem. I'd say the teams were absolutely pulling their hair out, as yourself and myself are doing as well. So a couple of them pulled a bit more and weighed it out, So, I mean, you're absolutely right. Tires were catastrophically bad, I think, on the day. It was reminiscent of the old times when they went to America for the first race at the Brickyard, and then the second year it was cancelled because the only cars that could compete were the 4 cars on Bridgestone tires because the other cars, the tire wasn't up to it and couldn't do it, and they were afraid of issues. Same here, afraid of issues. So we're going to pull everyone back to 18 laps. They couldn't just say we can't use the tire because there's only one tire manufacturer now, which I still think is a bad idea. Not only that, but last weekend they were confirmed until 2027 as the only tire supplier in Formula One. I think it's a mistake, but look, hey, that's me. What can I say? And not to walk away from controversy, off the race went on the start. Yes, 5 red lights onto the green lights, and away we go. And it was a brilliant start. George Russell was on top of Max Verstappen, pulling alongside of him, but unfortunately his teammate decided that wasn't acceptable. He wanted to be there too, turned in and knocked the 2 of them off the track, which is, that's a bit of a rookie mistake and a major no-no for somebody who really shouldn't be doing things like that. To be honest with you, even a rookie would have had better judgment. I'm not sure what's going on, Aidan. It's disappointing. Hamilton went off and started blaming his teammate immediately when it was quite obvious, even to commentators, it was his fault. He turned in. George is there, slightly in front of him, and right beside.
Well, I mean, we all know his personality, though. At the same time, when things go wrong, it's always someone else's problem. It's never.
Always. And look, it's just hard, I mean,
no, it's a hard listen when it happens every time when things go wrong. You kind of get sick of it. Like I said to him, look, he's a class driver and all this, that, and other, but you know, at the end of the day, he's a professional driver, and I think people would have more respect and all that if he just, you know, accepted responsibility and said, "Look," put his hands up and said, "Listen, it's my fault." But when
Yeah.
you know, it's kind of a turn off, or you become disinterested when every time a thing goes wrong, it's someone else's fault. People say, "God, the guy needs to grow up," kind of thing. And like
Yeah.
you look at his record, he doesn't. He owes no one an explanation. We seen his track record, so like, why would he turn around and blame someone else? Like,
Well,
you know,
yeah,
every driver makes a mistake somewhere along the line. Of course, with the exception of Sir Lord Max Verstappen and all that. But but you know what I mean? Like, I mean, when things go wrong for other drivers, they don't go on about it and harp on about it the way he does. And I'm not saying nothing against the guy. He's a class driver, as I keep saying, but it comes across as a lack of professionalism. You know, when you're,
totally.
you know, because I mean, every team prepares. Everything is well prepared. You know, I suppose it's nearly down to the usual saying. You know, the carpenter blames his tools, kind of thing.
Well, the thing is, it's like everything. It was like the infamous Michael Schumacher pulling across Villeneuve years ago. Before he won the world championship for Ferrari, he was second. He didn't think he'd done anything wrong. He's at the moment, I can totally understand it. And I can totally understand Lewis saying, my teammate knocked me off. He's at the moment, you know, the adrenaline is running. But Schumacher got off the track, went over, was shown the thing, and went, "Oh my God, I knocked him off the track." And he announced it. He said it straight away. Hamilton, no, he waited until the end of the race, and then there was big hugs between himself and George Russell, which looked very orchestrated. And then it was explained. But I mean, you could see it once he got back to the pits. You could see it immediately. It's your fault. So why at that stage did he not say, "It's my fault"? But I think, you know, look, there was a few years back, and I apologize. I was a bit of a Hamilton basher for a while, and I looked at it and I went, "No, that's not fair. That is not fair to do that to somebody who has achieved so much, you know." And it just wasn't. It was a bad year for him, and it didn't go down well, and it didn't go down well with people that watch Formula One. Didn't go down well with me, and now we're off again. I mean, you know, during the week they were asking about Max Verstappen and things like that, and how great a driver he is, and he is a great driver. I mean, you only have to look at the distance between him and his teammate to know, well, this guy's a star in that car, you know, compared to his teammate. But Lewis Hamilton turned around and asked him how he stands up with the greats, and Lewis Hamilton turns around and said, "I wouldn't rank him." I mean, you know, sour grapes. You go ahead and you say the guys.
Professionalism, like, you know, if that was Max Verstappen or any other driver to say fair play to him, you know, it's good to see someone else.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, but I mean, he said he just wouldn't rate him. In his opinion, he's not one of the great drivers. I think everybody would actually disagree with that, bar, I don't know, him maybe. I think everyone would disagree with it. But I mean,
like, you know, part of that though is how you judge someone is where they are in regards to the career, or what stage they are in their career. Obviously, like, if you were to compare him to, we say, Lewis Hamilton, if Lewis Hamilton was to compare him to himself, well, if they're at two different stages of their career, we say beginning and end. One was at the beginning, the other, and Lewis is at the end, or something like that. That's you can't really compare that because they're at two different stages. But if the two of them were the same, then that's a fair enough comparison. But do you know what I mean? So you have to, when you're judging or rating someone, it's you kind of have to rate them as in where they are at that stage. You know,
absolutely.
This fella here, right, at this stage. When you consider he's at this stage of his career, he's doing very well compared to someone else at that stage of their career. You know.
He is doing very well, but he just, I think he's suffering from Mika Hakkinen syndrome. You're going to laugh at that one, but I think he does. Mika Hakkinen, psychologically, years ago, had a Michael Schumacher complex. And it wasn't because of anything that Schumacher was doing other than winning. Schumacher was a nice guy, and everybody said he was. He had his moments, but every Formula One driver has their moments. But he's a nice guy. He shook hands. He's everything like that. Okay, he did try hit David Coulthard once, but to be honest with you, David Coulthard did ask for it. You know, and Schumacher never said anything wrong to Mika Hakkinen ever. And Mika Hakkinen could not get Michael Schumacher out of his head, and that's why he wasn't doing better. And it looks like Lewis Hamilton has a Max Verstappen complex at the minute. And I don't mean to be, beating anybody down. It's just, where is it coming from? At this stage, it's almost as if I'm not talking, I'm throwing Teddy out of the pram. He's at a different stage in his life. For all intents and purposes, Lewis Hamilton probably is not going to win another world championship. And his teammate, George Russell, who he's knocking off, is performing better when he's on a level playing field and not being given the plan B compared to Lewis's plan A. As is shown this weekend, he bet him in both sprints. And even though Lewis knocked him off the track, George got a fantastic fourth place. You can't argue with that. He did an amazingly good job. George is on the upswing. Lewis is on the downswing. Max is on the upswing. In a level car, the two of them could be driving the same car. Max will win. You only had to look at the controversial year the two were racing. Max was in an inferior car. No matter what way you look at it, and no matter what way you judge the last lap of the last race, Max was driving an inferior car, and he was on top of him. So, that's just... You gotta get on with it. I'm sorry, but you gotta get on with it. It ends at some stage. You look at Michael Schumacher, and he very nearly won his last season in Formula One, and he just pushed too hard on a pair of tires, blew them, and didn't win. And that was it. He could have been 8-time world champion. And the first thing he did was he went in and he apologized to the team. That's how you have to be. Look, you've done it. You've completed it. Box ticked 7 times. Now it's time to be graceful. You know what I mean? This is the time that you need to be a graceful loser because you're not winning. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, like, when you look at it as well, like Hamilton hasn't, it's been a while since he last won one. So, I mean, to be nitpicking at different things is kind of, you are where you are.
Yeah, but he's third in the world championship. Okay, he's Alonso sniffing at his heels at the minute, but he's third in the world championship. He did not need to go off on that first corner.
That's not bad when you consider, where he is. So, I mean, we all want to be number one in our sport, but at the end of the day, you are where you are, and that's it. But I suppose, in relation to that race, overall, like, I suppose, first of all, how did it finish? And I suppose, kind of, what were the key laps?
Well, the key laps were anything that McLaren were in. They were phenomenal. I mean, you have to remember, McLaren qualified second and third. They were both deleted because of the fact that they went off track limits. So then Mercedes came second and third, which meant Perez was starting in fifth and Norris actually started in 10th. They were on fire on the track, absolutely on fire. They were so on fire that at one stage, Christian Horner got onto Max and said, Max, halfway through the race, can you make a sustainable, i.e. every single lap, small increase in speed? Because Red Bull were actually looking back, thinking to themselves, these McLarens are fast. They were absolutely incredibly quick on the day, I have to admit. It was just absolutely mad. They finished second and third again, and there was even, I have to admit, and hand on heart, I absolutely think McLaren have it down because, towards the end, 9 laps towards the end, it was a peculiar call. Piastri was second, Norris was third. Norris was clearly faster, and he was asked to hold station. Now, he just said, why am I holding station? And he said, because Russell's coming up behind you guys. They didn't want them fighting. But he kind of came back and said, all the more reason for me to go faster. But he held station. And that's happened with Piastri too. The drivers are listening to the team. And the team is listening to the drivers. It's a great situation. What other team has this at the minute? Nobody. It's great to see it. Absolutely brilliant to see it. And that was absolutely key in this. They didn't fight each other. They did not fight each other at all. Team of the day, I have to just hand it to McLaren. I mean, after all that, and they still managed second and third, the drivers held station as they were asked to hold station. Do you know what I mean? Everything happened right. And what a great weekend for Oscar Piastri. He's a rookie. Okay, Lando Norris, on a day where things weren't deleted and lap times weren't bad and things like that, he would have finished second. But what a good day for Oscar Piastri. He really had a great time of it, and I still have to give driver of the day to George Russell. I mean, even though the McLarens did well, his teammate takes him off on the first corner. He comes out in last place and finished a very strong fourth. What a performance for that guy. And he's on the upswing. He's only going to get better. Mercedes had better start taking better care of him and giving him more time, because he has been aggrieved on several occasions with being Plan B. He shouldn't be Plan B. He's the future of Mercedes. Unfortunately, Lewis isn't. He's not going to be able to go for much longer. He's just, and his age. It's not anything other than age. Just the reflexes slow down. I think they want to be treating that guy a bit better, because George Russell, to me, is the man of the hour for that race, and the man of the hour for sprint qualifying too. He did finish ahead of Hamilton. Now, with the tyres, as we were talking earlier, and the heat. I'll go to the heat first out of sheer curiosity. Fernando Alonso started complaining about the heat, saying that his seat was on fire. Logan Sargent had so much problems with the heat in Qatar that he actually asked the team, could he come in? And the team said, yes, he stayed out as long as he could. But he had to pull in. He had to retire. He was having health issues in the car. 74% humidity, 36 degrees track temperature, and all that heat being fired from the car straight in past the seat and through the engine to cool it down. There was a lot of drivers having a lot of issues with the heat on the day. So Logan Sargent should not feel guilty for having to retire because of the heat. He should not. Hand on heart, great job. Brilliant job, Logan. Don't feel bad about it. No problems whatsoever. And the other thing I have to admit, the tyres and the track limits. Tyres, yeah, even though they were going for 18 laps, they were very, 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 very off at times. And the dust on the track. So much so that the naughty drivers list is quite a lot. And this is just for the race. This isn't for anything else. Perez got 5 seconds for exceeding track limits. And then he got a second one and a little radio message from the team saying, you're just hurting our race, i.e., stop going off. Stroll got a 5-second penalty. Gasly got a 5-second penalty. Albon, who was actually trying to cool himself down by putting his hands up like that on the steering wheel, car went a little wide. Track limits. He got 5-second penalty for that. I mean, even George Russell was doing the same. He just didn't go off the track, trying to cool themselves down. They were flipping up helmets as they were putting, the visors as they were pulling into the pit lane. It was just so hot. And Lance Stroll got a 5-second penalty too. He overtook off the track. He had been very naughty, going pushing the track limits the whole time. He gave the place back, which is normally okay, but it was his third infringement, so he got a 5-second penalty too. So I mean, that was a lot of naughty drivers out there, and the serious naughty. And I can't say serious enough. We know who that goes to, and we've done enough on that one. I'm not going to talk any more about that.
Well, the top five, how the top five went.
Max Verstappen, he finished first. Didn't get it in sprint qualifying, but he got it in the race. Fair play to him. He is world champion. Because, as we know, Checo didn't finish sprint qualifying. So he is world champion. End of story. He can go home now and not do another race. Oscar Piastri in second, and Lando Norris, both on great races in third. The amazing George Russell on fourth. I really like this guy. Brilliant driver and a nice guy as well. And Charles Leclerc finished in 5th place.
No problem. So that takes us on to the next Grand Prix.
And, gloriously called the Circuit of the Americas.
There you go. So the schedule for this, and we have under 10 minutes to do this. So I suppose the schedule now is on the October the 20th is practice 1. That's half 6 to 7:30, and then on the 20th then 2200 hours to 2300 hours. On the 21st then is sprint shootout. That's 6:30 to 7:15, and also on the 21st then is sprint also, and that's from 11 o'clock to 12 o'clock. and then finally the race itself on the Sunday, of course, the 22nd, and that's at 8 o'clock in the evening. Now, I suppose, you know, if you look at the racetrack itself, it's like a shoe or a boot. Kind of a lot of very strange and very, very dangerous kind of bends there, isn't there?
Yeah, there is actually. It is a peculiar size, all right. It's like a shoe that's been wrinkled up over time.
Yeah.
At the That's a good description. Now, in fairness, a shoe that's been wrinkled up over time in the ankle. It is absolutely mad. They've got two DRS zones, of course, one on the main straight, turn 20 to turn 1, and then a decent one between turn 12 and turn 11. Turn 11 and turn 12, I went the wrong way around there. There's a lot of sharp turns on this. I mean, Sector 3, you have to admit, it's a bit bonkers, the way it goes left and right and left and right. It's going to be horrible for the tyres. And Sector 2 is going to be curious too, because you have to kick at turn 3, to kick the opposite way at turn 4, to kick the opposite way, and then back on 6. And then you're going into Sector 2 and to kick the opposite way on 7, and back in 8, back in 9. Oh, I don't know. I think people will be getting dizzy on this track.
That's it, definitely. And I mean, you know, there are some serious bends. And I think, look at, you know, our usual things like average lap time, record lap, the fastest lap that's been done for a race, and of course, I suppose pit stop strategy, and of course tire selection. So we'll go through.
Well, I'd say Charles Leclerc is definitely he is the fastest driver here, 1:36, 1:69. That won't be beaten this weekend because, of course, that was in the hybrid era. As far as I'm aware, maybe I'm gone senile at my old age. First Grand Prix was 2012. There's 56 laps, a race distance of 308.4 kilometers, quite far, and a circuit length of 5.513 kilometers. So it's not the longest circuit in the world, but that's a good thing, because it's nice to see, you know, 56 laps. It's nice to hear 56 laps instead of 46 laps. You know yourself, it makes it a little bit more exciting. To me, I would go for 2 stops on this one. I would go for 2 stops in this one. I'd launch it on the soft tire and then I'd run on the mediums after that. If you go to hard tires, I can understand the durability around some of the corners and how long it's going to last, but you're going to get seriously mugged on that turn 11 to turn 12, especially if there's a Williams behind you, because they are chain lightning in a straight line. And you're going to get mugged there, and your hard tires might last, but you're not going to pass anybody. In most cases, in a lot of these corners, you're not going to get past anybody. So it can be, I suppose, certain areas of it are going to be a little bit boring. Although George Russell in Qatar last week, he actually managed to pass on a corner that nobody else could, and he did it more than once. It seemed to be his favorite passing point. So you don't know, but you know, there's so many places. Sector 3, you're not going to get by anybody. Maybe turn 17. I think you're going to be pushing it. You know, you're going to have to be status quo there. And really, Sector 1, from turns 3 to turn 10 on Sector 2, turn 11 on Sector 2, it's going to be very hard to get past anyone. You're going to be better off with a tyre that's going to get that heat in it quick, and it's going to go fast down that turn 11 to turn 12, in my opinion. So I would definitely say, yes, you'd want to be running soft and double mediums. Somebody might try double soft and a medium. I'm not sure that's going to work. It'll be interesting.
I suppose what car, you know, as we always say every week, so it'll this track will suit some cars other than others. So who is the candidates that it's going to most likely suit?
Oh, now I'd say, will we say Max Verstappen might do well here? Well, actually, compared to sprint shootout last week, he really didn't, did he? It's hard to say, actually. I'd say definitely McLaren. It's not. It might suit Ferrari, actually, because I find the funny thing about Ferrari is they tend to be a European circuit team as a general rule. Because European circuits tend to be more twisty-turny and less kind of planned. You know, they're old, very twisty-turny compared to some of the circuits. Mind you, you're looking at the likes of Malaysia and Qatar, and they're big, wide tracks, but the kind of racing line is very narrow because they're kind of almost straight lining some of the
And some of them
chicane.
are street. Some tracks are kind of street tracks as well, or street race.
Absolutely, yeah. Which normally suit Ferrari. They're not having a great time of it at the minute, but normally tracks like that do tend to suit Ferrari as a general rule. We will wait and see. McLaren are just unbelievable, unstoppable. McLaren are the new Aston Martin. Aston Martin had it at the first part of the year. I don't know how they've lost it. Now McLaren have it at the second part of the year. In fairness, they kind of dropped their focus in the first part of the year because they thought we're not going to be able to do anything here. And they were right. God, look at the second part of the year. How these guys have come out of the woodwork. It's great to see the McLaren of old. And I actually think Red Bull are worried about him, which is a good thing. It's nice to see Red Bull worried about someone. You know what I mean? So I mean, it's going to suit McLaren. It's going to suit Red Bull. I think anybody else is going to have a problem passing those and getting ahead of those guys. If Checo can get his head back in the game again, I'm not quite sure what's happening with poor Checo at the minute. He's just not doing well. There's a massive points distance between him and his teammate. He's in second place, but he's getting into dangerous territory at the way he's performing at the minute. He's just not pulling it out. I mean, Hamilton at the moment is 30 points behind him. If he doesn't finish a race and Hamilton finish first, that would be very close all of a sudden. And Fernando Alonso is 11 points behind Hamilton. He's gaining because he's finished ahead of him the last two races. So I mean, Perez needs to get his head back in the game again, as to say, but I'm predicting Max Verstappen, Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, and I'm reasonably confident with that one. And if it doesn't happen, you can't quote me.
No problem. You're not always right, but you're never wrong, right?
I'm not always right, but I'm never wrong. There's a reason for it.
No problem. So it's a great weekend of Formula One racing ahead, and plenty to look forward to. And of course, you'll have your eyes glued and come back to us next week and we'll reflect on that. So listen, thanks very much for taking the time out to do the last word on Formula One, and we look forward to talking to you again next week.
No problems at all, Aidan. Talk to you then.
No problem. Thanks very much. And that was Michael O'Grady, our Formula One expert, and myself talking about all things Formula One.